So Docare Health is one of the only programmatic platform that allows you to reach out to physicians in point of care space. So we are the only platform which has the capability to trigger the messages or to reach out to physician, help them, help pharma brands be in front of physicians when they are actually thinking about that patient.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Kamya Elawadhi. She's the SVP of Platform and Strategy at Docare. Kamya, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excited to have you. So Kamya, why don't you start and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Great. So I think I'll start with a little introduction about from where I've been coming and what all I've done in my life. I've been spending a lot of time in advertising right from the time I was a child, and I was very fascinated towards advertising from beginning. I used to see TV shows and everything, and I used to wait for that TV commercial to hit the spot and then get excited about looking at those 30-second storytelling. It was more like a narration to me. And from there, I had this immense love of advertising. I joined my career and started my career in advertising with that inspiration and motivation throughout my life. So I spent a lot of time in consumer advertising, and then I moved to healthcare advertising. While I was in healthcare advertising, I realized there's so much more I can use my consumer experience with and expand that industry. So when I started working in healthcare, I realized the potential, and I stayed back forever.
I love that. I love that. And it sounds like, you were one of the unique ones that loved the commercials and, learned from them, obviously taking you to what you do now. I think that's a cute little backstory. So, that brings you to Docare. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about Docare?
So Docare is primarily a advertising wing or a communication wing again for HCP healthcare professionals. We focus a lot on pharma and life sciences brands. We help them craft messaging and deliver that messaging to the right audience where that impact can where that communication can impact overall system and ecosystem. So we are trying to build that division.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine, the way that you're targeting your clients, because you are in such, a niche area in the pharmaceutical and healthcare, kind of marketing area, must be unique as well.
Yes. So I think whenever we talk about healthcare and pharmaceutical advertising or marketing, we always start focusing a lot more on patient side. We almost forget about the other side of the coin, which is HCP, a physician. And that's what we focus a lot more when we are talking about Docare. We try and keep our boundaries to physicians, HCPs, the care providers, and not just the caretaker or patient. So we try focus a lot more on the other side of the coin, which most of people forget, and which is just smaller segment or smaller part of the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. But still, obviously, arguably one of the most important parts.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting. So, talk to me a little bit more about the platform that Docare is.
So Docare Health is one of the only programmatic platform that allows you to reach out to physicians in point of care space. So we are the only platform which has the capability to trigger the messages or to reach out to physician, help them, help pharma brands be in front of physicians when they are actually thinking about that patient. We realize that there's a huge gap between how marketers were reaching versus what their end result was. So most of pharma industry focus a lot more on awareness, which is top of the funnel. And when we started working on healthcare brands further and further, we realized that from awareness to consideration to conversion, that bucket is not connected. All these three functions are working in silos. And majority of pharma brand and life sciences brands are always focusing on top of the funnel, which is awareness. And from that awareness, they expect the outcome to be prescription. So that prescription conversion was not happening, or the pipes were not firmly connected. And that's what we try to do here and focus a lot more to connect those pipes so that brand can think about journey to from awareness to script.
Interesting, interesting. And it sounds like that's a really important, kind of key piece of the puzzle that Ducare is able to provide.
Yes, so this is something that most of marketers have been, talking about that to achieve, but none of them have been really focusing a lot more. It's always said that, the best thing in the worlds are always in front of your eyes and you don't realize them. And if you see the way Google emerged, like almost a decade back, and connected all these open links for consumer, we are trying to do very similar in healthcare space. This has been an inspiration from consumer world. As I always say that I draw my inspiration always from consumer world, and this was one of that inspiration. Which this is something that has already happened in other part of the industries, other segments of the categories, but never happened for pharma, because probably pharma always love to play safe and always want other categories, other industry to be a success and then move on. And considering that, I think now is the right time for pharma, considering that COVID hit and a lot of sales reps, a lot of communication channel between physician and brands really came to a halt. It was boon in disguise. So we took that time to escalate the adoption of digital, and that really helped us, reaching to that potential of digital space for pharma and life sciences brand.
I think that's really interesting insight and perspective that you're taking, Kamya. So I really appreciate that. So, talking about insights, you mentioned, that pharma and healthcare was a little later kind of to the buck to get here. Talk to me, is there another common misconception that you tend to hear in the industry, in the field? Anything that you hear often?
This is my favorite part when I, hear after our conversation with any of the brand and marketers, and they just find it so amusing. They find it so hard to believe it's true, because all of this is real. That data that they have been missing from such a long time, they have been, putting and utilizing marketing spend to get no report at all. It was more like a black box. And now when they have that data available back to them, it's so amazing for them. And that's one of the biggest misconception, as well as confidence builder for us, because a lot of people don't realize the value of data. That data availability which is there is something that people don't really believe. How can this be so true?
Isn't that wild sometimes that, specifically working in marketing, when people are like, "Oh, I haven't looked at the data." We're like, "What do you mean? Like, how are you doing what you're doing then?"
I always, love talking about how marketers are data blind. They have so many different isolated files, and those files they always, are dumped on a hard drive or a computer, but never talk to each other. They are never connected. We do have everything in front of us, but we never try to find a common connection to read and make sense of that data. It's very similar to how, our brain neurons work. If they are not working in silos, we don't make sense. And if they are connected together, we make a lot of sense. The data is completely driven from that information. And if those separate silos of data start talking to each other, it makes so much sense. And that's what we try and focus a lot more on.
Yeah. Do you think, talking about working in those different silos, do you think one of the benefits of working with Ducare is the ability that, your professionals know what data to look at, what data is important to share, and they're able to analyze that and really help the customer?
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time in the education. I feel that this category has so much potential to build, and all the all the data sets that are sitting with a lot of different partners, somebody needs to connect them together. And we are doing that to make sure that, that narration or story is coming live in front of a pharma marketer when they plan any campaign, plan any program, any executions. They should be able to see what they are getting into and what is the end result they expect. And once we have that end result, we even talk about a measurement piece. So we're talking an end-to-end solution where we have planning, execution, and measurement to the level where all these three silos of data that are there can talk to each other and confirm, define a stronger narrative for a marketer.
I think that's fantastic. Well, Kamya, this has been a great conversation. As we start to wrap up, like I said, our conversation, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, either about the industry, about Doceree?
I think one of the things which I would want to talk about is how being uncomfortable in any situation is actually a good thing. And a lot of marketers, I feel, want to play safe and want to be in comfortable space. And being uncomfortable is not always a bad thing. And adoption of that digital is actually that moment where people started getting uncomfortable. And now, after getting uncomfortable, the upskill or the understanding has improved so much that this becomes like an obvious choice. So I would urge our listeners to always focus on being uncomfortable. That goes a really long way.
That's where growth happens, right? Is being in that uncomfortable spot. There's certain levels, obviously, but that's where growth happens, and that's where some magic really happens, is when you're out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Well, great. Well, Kamya, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you breaking down all of the great things that Doceree does, talking about the industry, the insights and the trends that you've seen, and kind of predicting, where the industry is going. I think this was a great conversation. I really appreciate you being on Business Ninjas today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, great to have you.